it's a disservice to hide yourself. Like you're doing the world a disservice by hiding yourself. That because sometimes people think that it's selfish. Oh, if I'm going inward and only thinking about myself, then it's too selfish and I can't do that because that's wrong. But it's not wrong. It's by you finding your gifts, you're going to help so many other people. And we can't talk about spirituality or even just like saying intuition. I know this because intuition told me. What does that even mean? But now that's what my whole dissertation's on, is looking at the conflict between reason and intuition. That intuition sometimes does give us the right reason without needing to go through all these hoops like reason forces us to. Intuition, you have an instant like enlightenment, and you know this fact, and it is a truth and it is a way of knowing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Shifting Dimensions podcast, where we explore the unseen, the unknown, and the transformative moments that shift our understanding of reality. I'm your host, Jumi Moses, spiritual seeker and metaphysical investigator exploring the mysteries of existence. On the show today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Laura Allen. Laura is a visionary author, educator, and founder of the Elay Institute, a transformative learning initiative that bridges the inner and outer worlds. Her writing weaves together spirituality, philosophy, and social change, inviting readers into deeper inquiry in self-actualization. With a background in interdisciplinary research and a passion for storytelling, Laura explores what it means to be and to become in an evolving world. Through her work with the Elay Institute, Bellis Productions, and the Grounded Spirits podcast, she aims to bridge diverse perspectives and inspire deeper connections between the inner and outer worlds. Laura, thank you for being on Shifting Dimensions. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. So something that is a foundation of your work, it's really this concept of self-actualization. And I just want to jump in and start talking about that. First of all, what is self-actualization, if you could define that, and why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah, so I think that everybody has this potential that when they're born, when they're little, they have this spark or this passion. And as we get older, it starts to fade. And I think that I think a lot of it's based on fear in society, that if we stand out or if we're to ourselves, then it could be seen as dangerous if we're ostracized or things like that. But for those who continue to keep that spark throughout their lives, and keep working towards what they love, then they'll reach self-actualization. So the way that I see self-actualization is when when you stop doing or stop trying, and you're just being, where you don't have to. Even like with work, I would say, like where they say that if you find something that you actually love, you're never going to work a day in your life. You just get to play and have fun. And I really think that that's what life is about. And by striving for this goal of self-actualization, it's that you are just actually you. You don't have any walls up, you don't have any masks up. You can just be your authentic self, and that it's okay. And it's really hard to do it, especially because we tend to not give ourselves permission to even do it. Oh, that's for them. That can't be for me. But once we start to unpack these, and that's why a lot of my work is with the inner and outer world, because if we start in the inner world and start figuring out, like, why can't I be this way? Why am I not allowed to? Why don't I allow myself to be my true self? Then we can start to figure out what's happening, and then it eventually comes out in the outer world.
Brilliant. And I totally agree with everything that you said. And when you were talking about self-actualization, before you said the word authenticity, that's what I was pulling from it because it really is being authentic and allowing yourself to just be who you are. And a lot of people are scared to be who they are because we've all been programmed to be something, right? As soon as you're born, you're put into a box. If you're born a man or a woman, you're automatically put into a box just based on your gender or sexual orientation, however you want to define it. But it's just very fascinating that as you grow up, you start to realize that, wait, am I really aligned with what people say I should be aligned with, whether in terms of career, how I should act, the type of dreams I should have. And something you said that was so spot on. It's like this whole idea of giving yourself permission to just be who you are, to enjoy the things that you enjoy, to like the things that you like. And I have to ask, were there moments in your life where you realized that you were living someone else's dreams and hopes for you? And how were you able to realize that, and how were you able to course correct?
Yeah, it all happened when I met my husband. So he was not the guy that my parents wanted me to marry, or like that my friends or family. Everyone was like, why are you interested in him? Why do you want to marry him? And I actually broke up with him because I'm like, if everyone in my life is telling me that it's wrong, like I have to break up with him. So I'm breaking up with him and I'm sobbing because it's like my heart. I'm actually gonna cry right now. I don't know why. We've been married for 5 years now, but just like allowing, I had always let everybody else rule my life because I didn't know what to do. So I would always ask for advice from everybody, friends, family, everybody. But that moment when I'm like sobbing, breaking up with him, I actually did it. So I broke up with him and I flew to London. And then that's when he messaged me and we ended up getting back together. We got married. And even now, things are a little better, but it's still not the way I would want my friends and family to accept him. But because of that, I was like, no, I'm going to marry him. I don't care what anybody else says or what anybody else does. I'm marrying him. And then COVID happened the day before the wedding. So I'm like, is this a sign from the universe? Should I not be marrying him? But we still did it. We still got married that day on a whim. We drove down to San Diego where my sister had a pastor. She worked for a church. So the pastor came to the house to marry us. And then a month or so later, that's when my spiritual awakening started, because that was the moment where I was like, wow, like I almost missed out on this amazing guy, and amazing relationship, amazing life that we've created now 5 years later. That I like, what else am I doing for others and not me? So I literally questioned every single belief. I dumped them all out, very Cartesian, dumped all my beliefs out and studied them one by one. Okay, do I believe this is the belief? Do I believe in it? Where did this come from? Is it because do I believe in it because my parents wanted me to believe in it, because the school taught me, because church taught me? Why do I believe in this? And then the things that I didn't believe in, I just discarded them. And then I went further and deeper into the things that I did believe in. And then that just opened up a whole new world, started getting downloads from the universe and really understanding like what my place is in this world and like where I belong. Because growing up, I never really felt like I belong. I always felt like I tried to be in the status quo and it just didn't really work out because it was inauthentic. So people would call me fake, but I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just doing what everyone else is doing. And I didn't realize that I really was hiding myself because I didn't feel safe being seen.
Well, I got goosebumps just hearing you talk about your story, because how nerve-wracking it must have been for you to be falling in love with this guy, and everyone in your life, the people you hold, you put on a pedestal, essentially, like our friends and family. We want their approval, especially when it comes to who we're choosing as a romantic partner. So I just want to commend you. It takes a lot of courage to go against what the people in your life that you love deeply are saying for you to do. You know what I mean? And I say that because I can resonate with that as well. Not the same example, but just in different moments in my life where it's like the people that love you the most might fill your head with things that don't align with your authentic path. I don't know why I can't talk today, but might fill your head with things that don't align with your authentic path. And that's the thing about this thing about self-actualization. I do think it's the first catalyst towards a spiritual awakening, right? Or going on a path, because it's a deeply spiritual thing to go on an inquiry of self-discovery, because it's like you're discovering yourself all over again. You talked about diving into spirituality and how scary that was for you. Did you grow up in a pretty religious household? And when you started learning about other spiritual concepts that were not aligned with whatever religious background you come from, was there tension there? And were you able to talk about it with your friends and family?
So absolutely not. I could not talk about it with anybody. I didn't grow up, it wasn't religious per se, but it was just very like reason based. So I'm an academic and I like in academia or throughout all of school, we can't talk about spirituality or even just like saying intuition. I know this because intuition told me, what does that even mean? But now that's what my whole dissertation's on, is looking at the conflict between reason and intuition, that intuition sometimes does give us the right reason without needing to go through all these hoops like reason forces us to. Intuition, you have an instant like enlightenment, and you know this fact, and it is a truth and it is a way of knowing. And so I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, and that's how my podcast started. So Ela Radio is a podcast where I explore different people's ways of knowing and their intuition versus their reason versus learning from nature. And then Grounded Spirit started in 2020, in September of 2020, because I was just consuming so much knowledge and I needed a way to get it out. And that's how Grounded Spirit started. It was just me talking into my phone back when Anchor was a thing. And I would edit and record all up in there in that app. And yeah, that's how it started because I didn't have anybody to talk to.
You mentioned earlier that when you started getting into these things, you started getting downloads. Do you remember some of those downloads that you were receiving? Were they personal or were they more general downloads on what life is about, what purpose is about, and did it add to your vocation and what you're doing now?
Definitely, definitely. It was, they were very universal. And at first, I thought I was going crazy. Like, how could this be possible? Like, different timelines or like different, different ways of, or the reality. I created this like reality theory that everything that we've ever known about, like even like fantasy, so we call fantasy like leprechauns or unicorns and things like that, like they have to be real on some timeline, maybe not here in this physical world, but like their essence has to be real because we wouldn't be able to know about them from different cultures. Like for instance, dragons. The Aztecs had a certain kind of dragon. The Chinese had a dragon. In Europe, they were fighting dragons. Like these cultures that didn't even talk to each other are experiencing the same creature, or in some way that they're similar, that there has to be some kind of connections, even if it wasn't actually physical, like we don't have like dragon bones that we can reason with. They had to feel it, or they had the intuition, they were receiving these signs from the universe. So that's just one example. But yeah, at first I thought I was going crazy and I'm like, oh my gosh, like where is this coming from? But then I started doing research, like academic research, and I found that even like Leonardo da Vinci believed that rocks had souls, and that when you push down a rock, it's because the rock led you and it wanted to be pushed down. And so I'm like, Leonardo da Vinci thinks this stuff too. I'm not crazy. But yeah, like doing research and finding other people like-minded that are bona fide through academia was a big thing for me.
I'm so happy to hear that because as you said, you're coming from a background where everything is reason based, everything's logical. You're an academic, your family is on that spectrum as well in terms of how they view the world, just very logical. So it's interesting, which I don't see it as a coincidence where you're going down this path in your life, you're people pleasing, and then you meet this amazing guy that you've been married to now for 5 years, and you were at a crossroads. Do you chart your own future, chart your own path, or do you let someone else decide that for you? And of course, you decided to chart your own path, and that just opened up all of these new ways of thinking, new knowledge paths or knowings that you came across. And even there's works in people that you can refer to that also believed in some of the downloads that you were receiving to affirm you that you were on the right path and this is the path you need to go down. And as you talk about it, I can just see how much you light up, right? This is your jam, and I can tell, and I love that. And I want to talk a little bit more about your dissertation on reason versus intuition and how they can work together. But before we get into that, I want to touch on something really quickly related to self-actualization, because I do think a lot of the suffering we have in this world is because people have not given themselves permission to self-actualize, to be who they are, to explore what they want to explore, to be passionate about what they're passionate about, right? At least out in the open without doing it maybe behind closed doors or suppressing it. Do you think that there's spiritual implications for not allowing yourself to self-actualize or going on that journey to figure out who you are?
I believe in reincarnation. So I think that if they don't do it in this lifetime, they'll reincarnate and they'll have to eventually do it. But I know like some of my past lives, like just I've gone to psychics and stuff. And so they've said that in my past life, like I was still a writer. So I still wrote a bunch of stuff, but I never published anything. So that's why in this life, like I said, I don't even say, I don't think ashamed. I think ashamed is like too strong of a word, but I was feeling some kind of way about publishing my books in spirituality. So my first book is about sex. And I'm like, okay, this is like my little entrance. I'm not going to come in to like the publishing world as like a normal author. I'm going to talk about the taboo. I'm going to talk about the things that people don't want to talk about. This is back in 2020. So this is like the beginning of the whole like spiritual stuff. I feel like now it's a lot more accepted, but at the time I'm like, I can't do that. I had a chakra book and I couldn't publish it. So until I published the sex one, then I started publishing all of them. They all kind of like spurred out of me. But yeah, so if they don't do it in this lifetime, it'll have to come eventually. But to that point, I don't think that people sometimes it is fear or like the permission for sure. But I think sometimes people just are so programmed that they can't even fathom the possibility that there's something more outside of this where they're just so locked into this is just the way it is, like it is what it is. And so I really think that the first step is figuring out your interests. What do you love outside of what school's telling you to love or what family members or whoever, what do you actually love? And really diving deep and picking 3 to 5 things that you love and then just building off of that. When you're watching TV, does it come up or going to the library, picking a random book and just really figuring out what it is that you love and then going from there.
I agree. And the reason I asked that question, if there are any sort of spiritual implications, of course, people talk a lot about reincarnation. And if you don't learn the lessons you're supposed to learn in this lifetime, you will come back and have to learn them again in a different lifetime. And I understand that concept. But I also think when you don't allow yourself to self-actualize, you're not allowing yourself to breathe. And it's like you're becoming spiritually constipated. That's like the best way for me to express that. And I think a lot of times people don't even realize that that's what's happening to them until they're like much older. So I've witnessed people around me where I feel like who are older, who I feel didn't allow themselves to self-actualize for whatever reason. And I know it's an ongoing journey. It's a lifelong inquiry, right? And it changes. Like who you were 10 years ago is going to be different from who you are now. And who I am now is going to be different from who I'm going to be 10 years from now, right? Certain things will be the same at my core, but I'm going to continue to evolve. But I think, again, I think there's something about living a life where you have allowed yourself to be in a box and live someone else's dreams and aspirations for you without giving yourself permission to live your own dreams and discover what those dreams and passions and aspirations are for you. And I think a lot of reasons why people hold back is because they're afraid of being seen as well. You know what I mean? I can speak for myself. There are many times where it's, oh, I want to do this, but I don't know if I want to be seen that way out in the world. And that's something you touch on. So can you talk about the courage and why it's important for us to be willing to be seen?
Yeah. But I do want to touch on, you're right about the spiritual implications. So with that, I think that the universe or a higher power, it could even be your higher self if you don't believe in God or the universe, that there's always going to be like these pushes, or sometimes like we have like tower moments where we feel like everything's falling apart, but it's really because we're leveling up and moving forward. And so I think that these sometimes perceived as bad things sometimes happen to be able to push the person into this kind of spiritual awakening. But if you take the challenge head on, then you don't have as many tower moments because you're the one that's actively moving forward, changing, that the universe just pushes you along as if it's like a flowing river instead of like a tsunami, like pushing you and forcing you to move forward. So I do agree with that if you don't actively do it, then that the universe is going to try to push you along.
That is true. That is true. And to add to that too, it's like we always get nudges. And sometimes people listen and sometimes they don't. They decide not to take that opportunity. But yes, I totally agree with that.
But with your question about courage, and I how do I say this? When it comes to being seen, it's very hard. So, like I said, mentioned earlier, when I was inauthentic, I was just doing what everyone else was doing. I I had no problems public speaking because I'm like, this, it's not me. So if people don't like it, it doesn't matter because it's not me. And then now it has taken me so long to be able to find my voice in speaking about these things because I would just get so tongue tied. Oh no, am I saying the wrong thing? And I think that that's like where the courage comes from, like doing it anyway. Like I have put out some bad podcast episodes and I'm like, these are so bad. And then they're the ones that blow up. And I'm like, why? Like, why are you guys listening to this one? This one sucks. Go listen to the other one. But I think it's just about putting yourself out there and knowing that everything that you put out, not everything's going to be 100% in your eyes, but as long as that you're proud of it, you're proud of putting yourself out there and trusting. You have to trust that the right people will find it. And it doesn't, our reason tells us like that's not possible. If you put it out there, who's going to look at it? But our intuition says that it'll be put in front of the right people and the right people will come. And really having that trust in the universe and trust in yourself that I am human, so therefore other humans have to agree with me. Not everybody, but every human, not every, many people will come and they will find something there. That's a cool thing about people is that we're multidimensional. So you don't have to like everything about me, but you could like one thing, we can connect on that one thing. And then that's how we form a relationship.
Well said. And as you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that, again, I think this example has to do with people who may be doing something that requires them to be forward facing, but just showing up as yourself in general when, you're going to family functions and you have certain ideas and things you want to talk about and the fear of being judged. I mean, that's also like part of being seen, right? But I think the example that you were just talking about now, as it pertained to you, for example, putting out your podcasts and being scared how people are going to receive it or their reaction to it. And I can definitely resonate with that when I first started my podcast a few years ago, not this one, not Shifting Dimensions, but I had another one called A Word to the Wise. But one thing I realized when it comes to self-actualization, a lot of times in order for us to find out who we are, right, and align with our unique, authentic code, it's not really about us. I believe that finding out who you are and realizing your gifts, your passions is for the collective, right? Like, I think things are planted in us. And a lot of times it's, well, I don't want to talk about this, but maybe you're supposed to talk about it and put it on TikTok. And maybe, yeah, only 100 people see it, but 10 out of those people needed to see it, right? So a lot of times it's not for you, you're in service to others. And as you're finding out who you are, again, like you said, because we're so interconnected, there's something in you that you need to discover that you are supposed to share with the world, right? So I just think it's very important to make that known as well. You know what I mean? Especially if you're someone who believes in service for the greater good, not just like self-serving things, which again, everybody's on their own path, not judging here, but just wanted to touch on what you were saying as well.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
with that really fast, it's like we're all puzzle pieces and we're all like flipped upside down. So we need to like turn with like the color side. And then that's how we'll be able to fit in. So if you don't feel like you fit in, it's probably because your piece is upside down still. And so by discovering yourself, by going inward, we can flip it. And then all of a sudden, all these people start connecting with you, and you didn't even know what you did. You were just being yourself. And so, like, doing that kind of thing has really changed me. And then, definitely what you were saying about like the service, that it's a disservice to hide yourself. Like, you're doing the world a disservice by hiding yourself. That because sometimes people think that it's selfish. Oh, if I'm going inward and only thinking about myself, then it's too selfish and I can't do that because that's wrong. But it's not wrong. It's by you finding your gifts, you're going to help so many other people. And yeah, that's a huge part of it.
And it's the most exciting part of it, really. And it doesn't make it less scary. But I think when you understand that, then you take yourself out of the driver's seat, right? Like your ego is not as involved, right? You're not thinking too much. You might still think about it because we're human beings and we care. But if you're not getting the likes, you're still showing up every single day. If you're someone who, creates content, for example, this is just an example, you're still showing up every day doing what you need to do. If you have an inspiration to create a beautiful garden. You love gardening. Let's use that as an example, right? And you have a garden in front of your house and you're like, okay, why do I feel the need to do this? Is because maybe you're supposed to bring beauty to people as they walk past your house, right? And maybe at first when you build it, I mean, create it, no one's really complimenting the garden and you might feel discouraged. But when you realize it's not about that, it's about the intention behind it, which is to bring beauty to people and to express yourself as well, that's going to allow you to continue to show up and continue to be in that authentic flow, if that makes any sense. So,
Yeah, so
anyways,
it
yeah.
can't be like work. I think that that's the problem with creating content for so
Hmm.
long. I've been forcing myself like, hey, I have to post on this day, I have to post on that day, and then I just get so discouraged and end up posting nothing. And so when it feels like work, you're not going to do it, but when it comes from inspiration, it, it's it comes naturally. So for instance, with me with podcasting, there have been times where I want to quit and I'm like, why am I even doing this? I just get so stressed out and there's no point. And then I stop for a week or two and I'm like, wait, but I need it. It's just like part of me where I just love it so much that I couldn't not do it. And I think that's where we have to get to be on the road of self-actualization is what can you, if you couldn't do anything, what would you miss doing? And then moving with those things, and then those things go into more things, and it just goes on forever.
Exactly. And I think it ties into something that you say, which is stop trying and just be, right? And we talk about authenticity and following your path, but sometimes that can be performative as well. And it shouldn't feel like you're trying to be authentic. There should be a flow, right? It's not really something that you think about. You're just allowing yourself to exist, to be, to express whatever you want to express. Please feel free to add to that.
Yeah, so it's like seeing a I saw this post yesterday that when your dog is just being and you just want to love it and just give it all the love because it's just so cute the way that he's just being. He's not doing anything. But we have to be able to receive that kind of love where we're not doing anything, but the universe still just loves us. And I keep saying universe, but it could be God. I believe in God too. So God just loves us and just wants to take care of us. And a water, you're talking about the garden that we're going to get it water not because it's doing anything but just because we just love that garden so much that we're going to give it water. The sun is going to give us this light that we need just for being, so we don't even have to try to receive. And I think that's like a major point too.
And something else to add to everything we've been saying as well, and stop trying and just be. I know we've used content creation because we're both content creators a few times as an example, but I think part of authenticity, like you talked about, trying to force yourself to post every day because you feel like that's what you're supposed to do for growth. Again, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong because everybody has a different energetic flow that works with them for their manifestation and whatever they're trying to bring into their life. But we're all different, right? We all have different energetic blueprints. And I think part of authenticity in self-actualizing is allowing yourself to explore different avenues, right? And doing things at your own pace, right? If you feel the need to go, go. Sometimes if you feel the need to rest, rest. If you decide you want to podcast one day and then decide you want to, I don't know, create blog about hiking the next day. Allow yourself to go down all of those rabbit holes. It doesn't have to mean anything and it doesn't have to be monetized. I just wanted to put that disclaimer because I think a lot of times when people were talking about self-actualizing, it goes beyond a vocation. It could just literally be exploring yourself through, I guess, whatever activity is calling to you at the moment or whatever sort of subject matter is calling to you, right? Because you could go down a line of study where you just want to learn more about different things and you're inquisitive. So I just want to make sure people understand that this is broad, even though we're picking out different examples to use as analogies.
Definitely. And I wanted to offer something that I use. I call it the randomizer, but I have a list on my notes app where I just write a bunch of things that I want to do, like cloud gazing or painting my nails, doing my hair, just like random things that I typically wouldn't spend a lot of time for. Like my hair, just I just brushed it down. That I usually wouldn't spend a lot of time, but then when I do have these little pockets of time, I go through I just randomize the list. Right now, like my list is it's 303 different things. So there's a lot, and there's a lot of to-do stuff in there too. Charge my phone or do my bed, things like that. But just anything that I might need to be doing, or even like writing a book or anything. Anyway, so I randomize it. And then, like yesterday, I got through 5 different things on my randomizer thing. I'm like, wow, like I got so much done today. And even though they weren't like work related, I'm not going to get money from it. It was like play a game on your iPhone. What else was it? I don't know, just like a bunch of like random things. But I felt so accomplished because I'm like, wow, I actually get to do these things that I've been wanting to do.
I love that you use the word play because I think as adults, we forget the art of playing, right? I think as children, we do have that short window of time without receiving too much indoctrination where we can just play and be silly and have different interests and to try different sports. And I think as adults, it's important for us to remember to play and explore different things and not be so focused on, okay, hopefully this can be monetized. Like people are always trying to monetize their hobbies and other interests, and there's nothing wrong with that. I would love to be able to make money podcasting full time. I love this. So if this could be my vocation, this is my vocation. And if I could turn this into something that allows me to live life comfortably, that would be amazing, of course. But I have other interests, right? That I don't necessarily not necessarily thinking about monetizing. But the point I'm trying to say with all of this is that it's so important to play because I think it connects us to our soul, our spirit, our intuition. And a lot of times we're just so focused on the mundane, grinding. Years are going by, decades are going by, and we look back and we just think, wow, what have I really done with my life outside of like work, 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 build, 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 build. Do I know who I am? And so again, I just think I love that you use that word play and it reminded me of that. So, okay, so now I want to talk about your dissertation that you mentioned because I think like I was talking about just now in terms of like self-actualizing, getting to know yourself, the more you know yourself, the more you can hear your intuition. So, can you talk to me a little bit more about why you decided to focus on reason versus intuition? And do you try to figure out when to lean on reason versus intuition? What is your work so far in regards to that? What are your findings?
Yeah, so it all started with when I started like learning about the spiritual stuff. So I'm like, I know that this is knowledge. Like I know that like I'm an astrologer. So I know that every time I've read somebody's chart, it's been accurate. So like there's some validity here. And the fact that people say that it's pseudoscience or that it's not true, like there has to be something in there. So that's like where it started. And then it exploded into looking at the occult, like different things, like looking at Hermeticism, looking at like ancient Egypt, and even indigenous beliefs here in the United States, Native Americans. What else? There was like just a bunch of stuff that was outside of academia, but I'm like those things still have knowledge. Like they're still valid. So like, how can I bridge these? So my first idea was, okay, I'm going to look at all the different subjects of academia and match them up, but I couldn't figure out like one word to encapsulate this like huge outsideness until I came up till I found reason. And I mean not reason, intuition. And because all of these authors that were talking about the occult or astrology or esotericism, all of that stuff, they were always talking about this somehow just knowing. And they wouldn't call it intuition, but now that I know, because like we hear intuition, but what does it actually even mean? And so the way that I'm defining it is that intuition is anything that's outside of our physical purview. So anything that we just know exists, but we can't actually see it, that's intuition. And all of these writers were talking about being against reason. And reason was the main thing for people in the Enlightenment period. And the reason why they call it being enlightened with reason is because before then, anybody could scare anybody else. Oh, there's monsters hiding in the closet. Watch out for this or watch out for that. And there was just so much indoctrination based around fear. And I was trying to think of the artist's names. I think it's Francisco de Goya. He has this painting that says like the monsters when we're sleeping or something along those lines. But anyway, it was at that time people were just so afraid that they had to hold on to reason. That was the only thing. Like if my reason can make me feel safe, I'm gonna choose reason. And for that reason, we had to get rid of everything that's not this. So that's like where the witch hunt trials would come in. Like anything that wasn't here has to be bad. Because if I can't see it, it could be this big scary thing, and it would just completely crush people. So with that said, now there's a kind of a revival happening specifically with the indigenous way of thinking, and it is very based in intuition but also with the connection of the mind, body, and spirit. And so that's what really attracted me first with it, but now it's this explosion that even people in academia have relied on reason. So, for instance, Jonas Salk, he is the creator of penicillin, and he talks about it. It was my intuition that led me here. And it's not just him. There's so many academics that have relied on their reason. I mean, on their intuition. Albert Einstein's another one who says that intuition is like the best way of knowing. Don't quote me. He didn't say something like, but he did say something about intuition like that. And yeah, so that's where that is. And so now what I'm doing is the study part of it, where I'm going to interview or survey, and then hopefully eventually survey college professors and see, has intuition played a role in your professional life and then in your personal life, and how does following these nudges, how did it lead you here? Because that's where I also decided to choose professors, people in academia, because I feel like academia is one of the small places where no one tells you get a doctorate in history. That's something that you have to take out student loans for and pursue. So even doing that is a revolutionary act in a way, instead of just getting a 9 to 5 and staying there. With getting a PhD, you have to go outside of the norm and follow this thing, even when everyone tells you there's no money in that. Why are you doing that? And so there's a reason why these people chose these different academic subjects. And so that's like what I'm going to investigate. Was it your reason that brought you there? Because probably not. It probably was intuition. So really like teasing that out.
So fascinating. I could talk about intuition every single day for the rest of my life. I'm just so fascinated by the concept of intuition. I'm a big believer in strengthening intuition because again, we've been talking about following your authentic code, following your life path, and a lot of times your specific path, your journey, a lot of it relies heavily on your intuition, and your intuition only gets stronger the more you go down a path of self-discovery. But what also fascinates me about intuition is that a lot of times it feels irrational, right? At least let me speak for myself. Like the example you just gave, right? Someone taking out student loans to get a PhD in history, especially in the world we live in now, a lot of people might be like, well, where's the money in that? What are you going to do with that degree? But they have this pull because a PhD, for you to get a PhD, most people, I would assume, like it has to be something you really, really love, right? It has to feel like, again, a vocation to you, like it's part of your life's work because it's a lot of time. There's dedication there. So there's something there that you're trying to excavate as you learn, right? Some sort of knowledge that you're trying to come into knowing. So it is a lot of work. But again, back to the point of intuition, like a lot of times it feels irrational, right? It feels without reason, right? How does your intuition come to you? How does it feel? How do you get those intuitive hits? Because I feel like it's different for everyone, but I would love to know like the things in your life that you've thought, this doesn't make sense, but your intuition was like screaming at you. How did it feel? How did you receive that guidance?
It's funny that you say screaming because mine comes in a whisper, but it feels like it's screaming at you. But that's how I know the difference between intuition and anxiety. Anxiety will just spiral and say the same thing over and over and over again. Whereas intuition, it's like a little whisper, but it's like a forceful whisper. You better do this. But that's like why I was saying earlier that I felt like I was going crazy because my intuition comes to me in a voice where I would just listen to this voice in my head and I'm like, where is this voice coming from? Is it of God? So that was really scary. But luckily my grandma, she's very spiritual, but I didn't know that she was spiritual or even I would even say witchy. And until I started going through this, and so I started opening up to her, and she started telling me like, oh, that's how I see it too. Or sometimes I get flashes in my head, she said. And I'm like, oh yeah, me too. And so the clairvoyance would come in. And then sometimes I get ringing in my ear, but I haven't figured out what that means yet. I'll get this ring and I'm like, okay, spirit, I know you want me to see something or talk to me or something, but I still don't understand what that one means. But with the words that I hear, they've never led me astray. And so I've over time have developed this trust with it. And now when that voice says something, I'm like, oh wow, like this is really it. So even if sometimes because sometimes it's like things that you would never think of or things that you would never want to do. But when you hear it and you're like, oh man, but that hits home, like that feels true, then it's okay, yeah, like this intuition is something that is a part of me. It connects me to the divine. And I'm going to listen to it because the divine knows what where I should be going and what I need to do. And they're creating this life for me that I just have to step into it and be myself and everything's going to work out. And like really being firm with that belief hasn't led me wrong yet. So
Thank you for explaining the difference between your anxiety and your intuition because for a long time, I try to figure out what's anxiety, what's intuition. And like you, sometimes the intuition is just a tiny little whisper where it's like I'm trying to go down a specific path, like I'm driving and maybe don't take this exit, keep going straight, something little like that.
yeah.
Or sometimes I think they're like small, tiny decisions that maybe don't have too much of a large impact on your life. Maybe going down instead of taking the exit, I might have run into like more traffic. So I'm going straight. So it saved me, like my intuition saved me 10 minutes because I'm in a rush. And then there are other nudges that really impact, not to be dramatic, your destiny in a way. And I'm an overthinker, but I've realized since I've been on this path of self discovery and self-actualization, I realized that when I'm getting that nudge to do something, it's not a scream, but it's an obsessive thought, like a whisper that just keeps like constantly, it's like a whisper, not in my head, more in my heart. That's how I would feel it. It's in my heart and it reverberates throughout my whole body. And I can't let it go. I can't even talk myself out of it. And it's almost weird because my intuition won't even allow me to overthink it because I'm naturally an overthinker. So now, whenever I'm overthinking something, I realize that, okay, either I don't have enough information to make a decision, or maybe that's not the right path for me. Because if it was the right path for me, I would not overthink it, especially when it's those like big life-changing destiny type decisions. And I know I'm being dramatic, but that's the way I define it. So I realize that when something's put in my heart, it's just kind of like it's there, it's pulsing, and I won't be able to sleep at night if I do not execute or take action in that direction. So that's one thing I realized. Of course, still strengthening in my intuition. I don't have it all figured out, but I resonated a little bit with what you were saying. And sometimes too, when I'm trying to figure something out, I'll get flashes of images as sort of like a metaphor, right? To give me guidance and stuff. So again, I find all of these things fascinating because I think we all have this ability. And I think it only gets stronger when we allow ourselves to be who we are and continue to self-discover because I'm still learning things about myself. But speaking about intuition, you do a lot of dream work. Like you talk about dream work and dreams and how they can offer literal and also symbolic guidance. Can you talk a little bit about that and why it's important for you?
Yeah, so dreaming, I really love it because I think that it's sent from intuition or it's a part of intuition. I've been reading a lot of books about intuition because of the PhD, but I forgot the author now, but she was saying that dreaming is just another layer to like the clairs. So like we have clairvoyance so you can see, clairaudience that you can hear, but like dreaming is part of that. But I don't really understand how with that. But the way that I see dream interpretation is everything in your dream is a reflection of you. So whoever you're seeing in your dream is a part of you that is most can talk to you through this other person. So that's how, like, but even like the setting is even you. So if you're at a party, it's like that's the part of you that wants to come out. And so everything is so meaningful in a dream. And so when you get all this information, the story starts to come out. Oh, and I love that you said like a metaphor, because that's the way that the soul communicates. So our mind communicates with language, our soul communicates with analogy or metaphor. And so that's like how the soul does it with our dreams, that everything's a metaphor. So it's like how, or sometimes dreams, it just like is trying to work itself out. So that's like where science comes in and said, oh, it's just a bunch of random images that you saw the night before, or like the day before, which is true because it's your body trying to figure things out. But there's always this spiritual aspect to it, because there's a spiritual aspect to everything in the physical, there's a spiritual aspect to it. So of course in dreams as well, where seeing the spiritual side of it, you're able to tell this story and you're able to pick out your beliefs. And once you pick out the beliefs, okay, why did this event happen in my dreams? This is the belief that caused it. Now, is this belief something that I believe, or then is it from somewhere else? Do I believe in this? Do I not? And then that's how we get rid of our limiting beliefs. And that's how we get a step closer to self actualization. So I think that looking at your dreams is so important because it tells you what's in your heart, what's in your soul, and how to move forward or how to solve the problem that you're working on your everyday life. But you can also even ask, like, before you go to sleep, this is the problem that's weighing heavy on my heart, can I get some guidance? And then whatever you dream, it may not be apparent because it might just be like, oh, such a random dream, like I dreamt about this and this. But if you actually take a step closer and look at to see what it actually is, so it could be by going to a dream interpreter like me, or sometimes just putting into ChatGPT, this is what I dream, what are you pulling out, what themes are there? And then I feel like ChatGPT is kind of like the Wikipedia, where it's like a really good starting point. And then from there, you can go deeper. There's a lot of blogs on dream interpretation, or a lot of books on it too, where you can go deeper and deeper. Or you can listen to my podcast, Grounded Spirits, because that's what we talk about with dreaming.
I love dream work. I love talking about dream interpretation. I have a dream diary myself where I write things down, and when certain things happen in my life, I'll go back and read through my dream diary and I'll see that there was like a foreshadowing in my dream. So I have a lot of precognitive dreams. And I think when doing dream work, it's also important to understand the different types of dreams that could show up for you. And like you said, there's usually always a pattern, and there's something in your spirit and your soul that's trying to communicate to you. And I think it helps with that whole self-discovery thing, self-actualization thing that we've been talking about. Because, like you said, a lot of times the people we see in our dreams are a representation of a part of us that we are not yet aligned with. I had someone on the show give an example with a client she was working with who had this dream where she was with a coworker who she didn't really get along with in the physical world, but in the dream world, they were in a relationship of some sort. And she was so confused by that. But the person who had the dream, is a very A-type person, didn't really know how to relax or have a good time. And part of the reason she didn't get along with that coworker is because that coworker was more relaxed and chill and could have a good time. So part of that dream interpretation was like, there's a part of you, the part of your soul that wants you to relax, take a step back and have a little bit more fun and not be as serious. So I just love dreams. I do feel like they help to bridge the gap between our physical world and what's also like the energies that we're experiencing on a spiritual side as well. So very, very fascinating. Something else you talk about is using the four elements as a framework to self-discovery, which I was very curious about, which is earth, air, water, fire. How do these four elements help with self-discovery?
They are in every single aspect of everything. And so it's been really cool to see them as a framework. And understand. So for me, with my research, I was able to align them with academia. So for instance, fire is the arts, water is the social sciences, because like you're trying to feel things out. So with social sciences, you're trying to understand why people do what they do, but the water energy is like sussing things out, like using your intuition, feeling, and that's how you're going to behave. You're not just going to behave like a robot. You're going to behave based on what you feel. And then body is natural sciences and humanities is the mind. Because with humanities, the humanities is just a story. And so, how are we finding out the story? Is through our mind, through our reason, we're creating a story. And now, especially in history, in that study, we're starting to see these new stories come out. So, from voices, unrepresented voices, voices that were pushed out into the void, they're starting to resurface. So, it's been really cool to get into these deep holes of people's stories that weren't seen before. So so that's how I started it there. And then I'm a polymath, so I really love all the different subjects and I've always loved everything. And my whole life, everyone was like, pick one thing. And I'm like, but I love everything. And now I get to put everything together. So I love it. So by learning about these different parts, we all need to love one part about art. So you don't have to be the best painter, you don't have to do this, but you can enjoy a movie, you can enjoy something, and then that movie can then impact you to be an art. The way that you dress, the way that you look, that's art. So really focusing on that art helps the self-actualization. With the mind and humanities, it's about what makes you human, what stories are you telling yourself, and whatever you tell yourself, that's like putting like a floppy disk into a computer, or I guess nowadays would be like a USB or something, but it's like you're literally programming through these belief systems, and so that's all mind. So if you can identify what beliefs you have, get rid of the ones that are limiting you, that don't align with you, you can have a better story or a better human experience. With social sciences, with water, it's about really trusting yourself. We've already talked about intuition, but like really getting deep into your intuition and trusting it. And then you'll be able to really lower your social anxiety and be able to communicate, be able to be part of the collective. And then with the natural sciences and the body, we have to realize that our body is nature. Like our body is no more than a plant that moves and feels. And that's why when we die, we go back to the earth. And by really connecting with our body or connecting with nature, then we connect with our body, or vice versa, however you want to do it. But really connecting with yourself and trusting your body, and stop forcing your body to eat when you want it to eat. No, your body tells you when you want to eat. Then it all comes together. So that's like the main way that I use it, but there's like a lot of little nuances, of course.
Of course, and that was fantastic. I really love that. I never thought about it that way. And I'm so happy you mentioned polymath. And for those who are listening, and please correct me if I don't define this properly, but a polymath is someone who has multi interests in different subject areas. And I'm so happy you mentioned that because I consider myself a multi-passionate person and I do see value in all the different sort of academic paths, right? Or ways of being. And I used to struggle with having to pick one path, right? Because you're 17, 18, graduating high school and you're expected to make this huge decision on what you're going to major in. And it's, I don't know, right? So you're forced into a specialization. And I have always struggled with that. And I think as we talk about, again, self-actualization and self-discovery, a lot of people struggle with, oh, who am I? Because I can't really define it because I don't have a specific interest. I have 10 different interests. But you don't have to define who you are. I think that's also part of self-actualization. You don't have to identify with a specific form or knowledge or a specific path. You can be multi-passionate. And you do say that in our core, most of us are actually polymaths. And do you really
Yeah.
believe that? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely believe it. So just like I was saying with art, like people are always hating on math. And as someone who's always loved math, it really bothered me. I'm like, how do you not love math? It makes so much sense. But I think it's honestly the way that it's been taught. You're not going to learn math like that. So that's like a whole other thing that I'm working on. But with math, like there has to be some part of it. We use math every day. We just don't realize that we're doing it. But like when you count how many cars are in front of you before the exit or something dumb like that. But we there's something in every single academic discipline that someone loves. Not everyone has to love the same thing. You might hate division and I might hate multiplication, let's just say. And but there's still like you could love addition, I could love subtraction, just like something basic like that. But there's something in everything. This I'm so firm on this. There's something in everything that somebody will love. It's just going to be completely different than everybody else because of the perspective that we have. And by leaning into these interests, like I was talking about at the beginning, like you're going to find that either they all are part of one discipline and then that's the specialization within the discipline, but each of them are going to be different where they're going to have aspects of the other disciplines to influence that. So like with plants, you could talk about them with the natural sciences, but the way that plants interact with each other, then that's the social sciences. But then I read this book, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmer, and she first started when she was 18 going into college. She really wanted to understand how, like, why the asterod and lily, I believe, why they always grow together and because they create these really beautiful colors. And then the professor told her, oh, that's more arts, that's not science. But it is science. Like, why do these plants come together and create these beautiful colors? It was like a yellow and a purple. And so like, why are these colors like they're complementary because they're opposite on the color wheel? So like everything is related to everything else. It's just about figuring out what you like and then going deeper. And I would even encourage you to look at the four disciplines, so arts, humanities, social sciences, and natural sciences, and try to find one thing in each of them and go deeper into it. And you'll see that it's limitless. There's so much to learn and there's so much to keep going further and further and further and further down that go wrapping everything up. It's that then that's going to help other people. And then other people are going to take that knowledge and then do something else with it. And that it just goes on forever.
It absolutely does. And it used to frustrate me how essentially what I'm trying to say is that we live in a world where people need to draw lines and make boundaries between one aspect of something versus another aspect of another thing, right? We like to separate things and put things in different boxes, but I always used to see all of these different disciplines as like influencing each other. And I think that's why there's been so much of a gap in our education system because we don't know how to merge all of these different elements that feed into each other, but we continue to separate them. So I just love that you're talking about this. And I think it's also indicative of where we're going to be going in the future in terms of really understanding the nature of reality, right? Because a lot of things actually bleed into one another and there's really no separation. We talk about that in terms of what it means to be a human being, but I think on a global cosmic level and in all parts of the systems that we've created. So again, you're getting your PhD in education policy reform and evaluation. And obviously your dissertation is focused on reason and intuition. But I brought up your actual title, what you're getting your PhD in, because I want to know where you think education is going to be going in the future based on everything we've just talked about.
So that comes in with ELA Institute that I founded. For a long time, I didn't know what ELA stood for until finally now I have it. It's intuition led academia. So I really want to create this school. Well, not really. I am creating this school. It's opening at February, fall of 2027. And so it's going to start with preschool and we'll just follow them up and bring more people in as we go. But it's really going to be based on intuition. So it's the classroom, you won't have a teacher. You won't be sitting in a chair. We've been doing that for millennia. And I'm so tired of classrooms looking the same that they did 1,000 years ago. Every other sector in society has morphed, has changed. Look at the cars. The cars that we had 100 years ago look nothing like the cars that we have now. But in school, it looks exactly the same. So my school is the classrooms, you're not going to have a teacher, you're going to have a tour guide. And the classroom will be a museum. It'll be set up like a museum. And the kids will just get to go around and interact with the different things. So instead of teaching somebody that yellow plus blue equals green, they're going to paint their hand yellow, they're going to paint their hand blue and mix together. Okay, what color is it now? And have them really figure it out for themselves. And then it sparks their curiosity, it sparks their authentic self to then not be told you have to learn this, and this because I'm going to give you a grade. No, you want to learn because your heart tells you that you want to learn, your intuition leads you to that knowledge. And so that's where I really see education going. I really hope that my school can be a framework. So I'm not saying that every single school has to not have teachers and not have this, but at least allow students to be more creative and more curious instead of being obedient and compliant. That's why there's so many. I was a teacher for 6 years too. So I'm speaking from experience where kids that had problems in school, so whether it's like behavior problems or learning disabilities, that's just a label that we put on kids that can't be compliant for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't get enough sleep. Maybe they didn't get enough food. Maybe they don't have enough love. Maybe they don't feel like they belong. There's so many things that go on in a child's life that I think it's ridiculous that we're forcing them to do this and then giving them a grade to reflect their worth. And that I just think that it's so horrible. And that's why I had to get out of education. I quit around the pandemic time, like 2021. And I've been working on the school ever since. So I really hope that this can be something that changes the way that education moves forward.
That sounds amazing. And I think to your point, I think a lot of education is being compliant and just ingesting knowledge, but not really questioning it. I don't think a lot of schools or a lot of the education systems we see nowadays, I don't think they foster curiosity or intuition, which is just important. It's part of who we are. But Laura, this has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. I have to ask you, have you shifted in perspective on anything recently?
Yes, so with receiving love, because I think that before it was like to be a quote unquote good person, you have to give and give and give. But what I realized on this spiritual journey that the more that I gave, then I didn't have anything. So then when we talk about abundance, abundance is this never ending, forever flowing stream of love. And then that love can get turned into money or it can turn into things, whatever. But when it came to my own personal, like when you're talking about your heart, I'm like, that sounds so cool that you feel it resonate in your heart, because I feel like my heart had to be like caged almost for such a long time because it wasn't safe to come out. And I feel like now it's finally like de-thawing. It's finally thawing out, not de-thawing. It's finally thawing out, and I'm finally able to lead with my heart instead of my intuition. I mean, both. I'm still with my intuition, but they are different parts. Like your intuition is more of a gut feeling, and the heart is more of like your soul, the body of the soul. And by allowing my heart to finally flourish and bring out, I realized that it's actually really important to receive love. Receive, like not being like before, I thought that not receiving love was like a sacrificial thing. Like I'm a good person because I don't need to take that much love. Like I'm good with what I have, this little like picola thing. But no, like the more that you can expand and receive love, it only amplifies the love that you give. And it has been like such a revelation to feel this, and it's only happened like this last week. And I think a lot of it too had to be with resting. We brought that up a lot through this conversation, that you have to rest. And such a workaholic where I would just work and work and work and work and get all this stuff out, but resting, I feel like the universe grounded me. Like none of my stuff was working. Like anything that I would try to work on, it wouldn't go through. Something would mess up. I'm like, okay, spirit, I'll just go sit at a park and just stare at the trees, stare at the grass. But what I realized is that they were giving me these energies to be able to receive love, to regulate my nervous system, because you can't feel safe being seen unless you regulate your nervous system. So by sitting out in nature and allowing my nervous system to rest, like really feeling the earth holding you and melting into it, but trusting that you're not going to fall off into space. Like the earth has got you, and we have to treat the earth with respect. And then again, that goes with your body and treating your body with respect and allowing all of the different pieces to like let go of things, because you're always going to receive. I think that's why a lot of people have a hard time letting go, because they're afraid that nothing else is going to fill its place. But when you receive this love, then you can let go of everything, because better things are going to come in. So that has been a major shift this week.
So happy for you. That's a wonderful shift. I think to your point, there's this constant flow of energy between giving and receiving. And if you're not learning to receive or accepting it, then there's that stagnation in the flow of energy. So I'm so happy that you had that shift. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you or listen to your podcasts?
Yeah, so you can find everything at theornellian.com. So it's ORNELIAN. And you could do ornellian.com/grounded spirits or slash Ayla Radio. Or if you want to know more about me, slash it's Laura Lynn. That's ITSLAURAALYN.
Awesome. I'm going to leave all those links in the show notes. Thank you again, Laura, for stopping by the show.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. I had a great time.